Tember, Tier List Tember, Tier List Tember, Tier List Tember. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome to the very first video of Tier List Tember. For the first tier list of Tier List Tember, we are going over the guns in Resident Evil 4, although specifically how they fare in the VR mode. I don't know how many people have played it, the version released on Oculus 2, but it's a really fun experience. And I thought instead of just tier listing them normally, I'd tier list the version that I'm honestly more familiar for. I've only played the console version once or twice, but I've run through the VR version a number of times. Allow me to use my expert advice on weapons to give you the rundown and tell you what guns go in what tier. Starting off with the Silver Ghost, the basic starting pistol that everyone starts out with. It's a pretty good weapon overall, both in the normal game and the VR version, but something important when it comes to a gun's placement when it comes to the VR tier list is its utility when it comes to dual wielding. Something the VR version added was the ability for you to hold two items at once. Now this is an incredible game changer because this means you can hold two items at once. It could be a gun and an herb, it could be two different guns, it could be the knife and a gun. Regardless, it is incredibly useful based on how a gun performs both on itself and how it performs in dual wielding. And for the VR version, the pistol's alright. It is, I'll put it in incredibly useful because it does have the longevity one would expect from a gun of this quality. But it doesn't perform all that well in dual wielding because when you have to reload the gun, and the magazine isn't especially large, whenever you have to reload the gun, it takes quite a bit to actually do it because you have to reach down, grab the magazine, lock it in, and then either pull the trigger again or slide the head. So it's incredibly useful because of its early game durability. It does get replaced by later guns, but I think it is still an incredibly useful gun. Next up we have the Blacktail. And the Blacktail is one of the guns of all time. Especially whenever you upgrade it, it's incredibly fast and incredibly stable, meaning it's pretty good for landing headshots or targets who are pretty far away. The problem is that it doesn't really have anything other than its incredibly fast speed, and also it has incredibly low damage. And if you're going for high speed and low damage, why wouldn't you just go for the TMP, which I think even has more damage at max compared to the Blacktail. And it fires way more bullets, so I'm going to put it in poor showing. Next up we have the Punisher. And the Punisher is, I think niche application is probably the best use for it because I don't see a reason to use it over the basic pistol. The main niche of the Punisher is that you can, it penetrates. It's got penetrating ammo. The gun, whenever it hits something, it will pass through and hit another target. But the problem with that is that oftentimes when you're aiming with the pistol, you're aiming for the head or the knees in order to make it so you can use one of the useful situational attacks like Leon's roundhouse kick or suplex. So I'd imagine that if you're aiming for the head or the knees, the bullet won't really have much penetrative power. And if you're just aiming for the chest to try to just hit as many people as you'd like, I think there are better guns for it. I will say I'm keeping it in niche application over the Blacktail's poor showing because the Punisher, it doesn't roll the headshot chance for each shot. So whenever you fully upgrade it to 5 times, if you land a critical headshot on an opponent, then that crit bullet will continue traveling. And if it does hit someone else, it can then transfer that crit onto them. Which is incredibly useful, but that's incredibly niche. You know, you'd have to hit a headshot and hit a critical headshot and have the aim be in such a way that you're hitting other heads. Next up we have the Red 9. And the Red 9 is probably, I'll put it in the same tier as the Silver Ghost. Normally I would put it in incredibly useful, but I would put it above it in the VR version because while it is somewhat bigger than the Silver Ghost, it's stronger than the Silver Ghost. It reloads a bit faster from my experience, and best part of all, you don't need the stock in the VR version. In the base game, it's recommended to pick up the stock when you pick up the Red 9 because it helps stable the gun so your gun isn't wildly aiming about while you're holding it. But since the VR version is, you know, you are your gun hand and they can't exactly force your hand to move, I don't think the stock does anything. So instead of being a gun that takes up 11 spaces, it only takes up 8. And when you compare it to its far superior stats, because they balance it around, you know, the gun requiring an additional attachment to function as well as stably as, I'll say, the Silver Ghost is, it has better stats than the Silver Ghost, so you can just use it instead of that. It's incredibly useful in the VR version. Next up, we have the Matilda, and I'll be honest, I haven't used the Matilda too much. If I'm running through the game on New Game Plus, I'm going to be using my very upgraded guns, or I'm going to be using one of the infinite weapons, either the Chicago Typewriter or the infinite rocket launcher. So I haven't used the Matilda much, but from what little I have, it's alright. I don't usually like burst guns. I'll just say that across the board. I'm not a fan of burst guns, but for a handgun, it's alright. It's fine. Next up, we have the shotguns. And the shotguns suffer heavily from being unable to dual wield, because the normal shotgun and the riot shotgun both suffer from the fact that you can't dual wield, because every time you fire, you have to pump. I feel like they tried to balance that out with the riot gun by making it so the riot gun is a very tight spread with its shells, but I still think that it's not great overall. The hunting shotgun in particular, I feel like it just doesn't work as well as it does in the base game. It feels like the spread is way larger. Like, if they tightened the riot shotgun spread, they vastly increased the hunting shotgun's spread. I'm gonna put it and poor showing because generally I don't use it a whole lot. I'll usually switch to the riot shotgun once I get to the castle. But yeah, the riot shotgun just isn't all that great. I will say, they did get their own niche form of utility, because in the VR version, you can pump the shotgun whenever you want. So what you can do is, before you upgrade the capacity of the riot shotgun or the hunting shotgun, you can pump the gun to empty the magazine, and the empty shells, since they weren't fired, will go back into your inventory, so long as there's space, and then you can upgrade the gun to completely refill it on ammo, which can be incredibly useful. I'd imagine that, like, in some circumstances, like if you were playing a really hard difficulty mod, something you may do is buy a hunting shotgun or a riot shotgun to just empty them out and then sell them back so you can get some extra shells. Now, the Striker is the best gun in Resident Evil VR. It's not even a contest. It is the best gun in the VR game. Not only does it still have all the statistics from the base game, such as having the massive 100-round magazine when it gets fully upgraded, and even before then, it's got a pretty large capacity. It is the only shotgun that can be dual-wielded. And not only can it be dual-wielded, but its reloading is incredibly easy because you just slot in a single shell, and then your gun is fully loaded. So that is incredibly overpowered, and is probably the only real shotgun you need. I would maybe even argue that it's the only one of only two guns you need. Like, if you just had the Red 9 and the Striker, you could reasonably clear the entire game, even on professional, pretty easily. Now we get to the hunting rifle, and the hunting rifle is just outright bad on the VR version. I don't know if it's my headset settings, I don't know if it's the game itself, but the hunting rifle has a nasty habit of the scope not working right. Instead of just being a scope that you can look through, like in other VR titles, like, say, hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades, whenever you bring the scope close to your eye, it'll automatically scope in and block out everything but what the scope can see. Now, not only does that activate when you don't want it to, it also activates, it also doesn't activate when you do want it to. And I found it incredibly inconsistent. I also just think that the rifle itself is a bit less mandatory whenever you're playing the VR version, because the main utility of the hunting rifle is being able to get a closer look at things and really focus your shots. But you can just do that by being in first person like the VR already is. I've also had issues with the actual bolt of the sniper rifle just not cooperating, where it will pull back, but because I didn't pull it back all the way, it didn't fully eject the bullet, and so I'm trying to fire when it's still technically not ready, and it is very frustrating when it doesn't work. I would outright call it bad. It's just, it doesn't perform well. Then next up we have the semi-auto rifle, and the semi-auto goes up in incredibly useful because it doesn't really have the same issues. Well, it has some of the same issues, like the scope issues of the hunting rifle, but in general it just performs better because not only do you not have to pull the bolt back, meaning you can either one-hand or dual-wield it, which gives it incredible utility. I also find that reloading it works just so much better. You just slot the magazine out, slot a new one in, and pull it back. It's my main weapon of choice when playing Wesker in the VR mode, because it's just so useful to just whip that out and pop ahead. Next up we have the TMP, which is basically like a better version of the Blacktail. And the TMP is even better in the VR version, sort of. See, you don't need the stock in the VR version, because again, how would they have the stock brace against Leon when Leon is you, and they don't know where you are, so how could they guess when the gun is stocked and when it isn't? So, you don't need to buy the stock in this version. It's somewhat unusable if you one-hand the gun, so it doesn't have dual-wielding capabilities, but I will say that it is still incredibly useful, especially for clearing out crowds of Ganados if you don't want to use handgun ammo or shotgun ammo to just click heads. It's nice to just whip this out and mow through the horde. I'll put it in all right. Next we have the two magnums, and we have the Broken Butterfly and the Killer 7. See, the magnums are kind of hard to quantify because they're basically the same as the pistols, but I feel the Killer 7 is a bit better than the Broken Butterfly. The Killer 7 is technically worse than the Broken Butterfly at the end of the game, really, when you fully get the upgrade for the Broken Butterfly, but in general, the Killer 7 is just a better weapon. In general, I find using the Killer 7 a bit more practical in VR than the Broken Butterfly. We also have the hand cannon, which is basically just the Broken Butterfly on steroids. I will say that playing with this is a bit better than the Broken Butterfly, because I find hand cannon ammo a lot more frequently, and the hand cannon, while it does have very small magazines, it does have very consistent reload. Sometimes I've had it where whenever I need to reload the Broken Butterfly, it just doesn't register fully. Either I miss the cylinder and the bullets don't go in, or or I just accidentally let go of the speed loader too quickly, so it's just stuck there and it can't fully reload. But other than that, the hand cannon is basically just the Broken Butterfly, but better. And then we have the rocket launchers, which I will say both rocket launchers suffer from a bit of the scope syndrome of the hunting rifle, but not to the same extent. So I'm going to put them in all right because they do their job. This is one that just basically just unlocks a cutscene, but overall they're fine. The Chicago typewriter. I mean, it's the Chicago typewriter. What more do you want? What more do you need? It's efficient. That's what it is. It can't be dual wielded, and it can't be. So there's a bit of, you know, loss of functionality where you can't just pop a magazine out and pop it back in for coolness points. And I don't think they added the circle magazine that was included with the stylish Leon outfit, but I could be wrong on that front. Next we have the mine launcher, and I'll be totally honest, I've never used the mine launcher before testing it out on the VR version, but it's incredibly good. It's basically like a rocket launcher that, while you need to pump, so you can't dual wield with it, it is basically everything you need from a grenade at a moment's notice. I didn't have any issues reloading it or cycling the cartridge like I did with the hunting rifle. It is just the hunting rifle but a grenade launcher, and I absolutely love it. Now we get on to the two weapons exclusive to the Mercenaries mode. We have Hunk's TMP, which is just a better version of the TMP, and Krauser's hunting bow. And I will be honest, this is probably one of the coolest weapons in this game. Like, I am so happy that they added the Mercenaries mode to the VR mode, because playing with Krauser's bow feels so unbelievably cool. You just become an absolute hunter. You can be stopped, yes, but just the amount of adrenaline you get from turning around 360, drawing an arrow, and skewering some dude with said arrow, it's so amazing. And it gave me a new appreciation for archers, because I'm a big fan of the Fire Emblem series, as you might have been able to tell, and most of the time, archers suck. But Krauser's bow made me realize that that's Fire Emblem's fault that they suck. Not bows in and of themselves, that the audio of the bow itself is so juicy. The pull of the string, oh, I absolutely love it. The only thing I wish that was changed about this was if you could stab people with the arrows before you launch it, because, like, imagine how cool it would be for you to just stab a Ganados, pull it out, and then launch said arrow at a different target. That would be all I needed in life. But I understand that that's probably incredibly hard to program, but it would have been cool, just imagine. And with that, the Resident Evil 4 VR weapons tier list is complete. Thank you for watching this first Tier List Tember video, and I will see you in the next one.